Gata on opening the sutra. The Dharma incomparably profound and infinitely subtle has rarely encountered even in millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, receive and maintain it. May we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning.
Good afternoon, everybody. Does anybody know what time this talk is supposed to conclude? I've got this lovely clock and no idea when I'm... 3:45. Oh, God. All right. Whatever will I find to say? Oh. You know, a little subcommittee of us had an adventure today. Perhaps you didn't know. It was quite an adventure, really. We were tasked to go and invade the university. It was a stealth operation. None were to know. We formed our little team, and we made our plan, and we ventured forth. And, you know, I may have mentioned a time or two that there was a moment in my training where Kaishu, Horace Moody, who was then a Shuso at the monastery, was put in charge of a work crew that I got assigned to, and he was, you know, a Shuso. He was a heavy at the time, and I was very junior. And we got assigned to leave the monastery grounds and go get a pickup truck and go pick up some stuff, you know, whatever it was, at the tractor supply store kind of thing, bags of something. And they needed muscle, and they picked me. Oh well. But I remember at the time I was really unsure about how this was going to go, because we were leaving the sesshin, you know, and of course sesshin is obviously a silent deal, and then, like, I couldn't comprehend how is the disciple going to handle going out into the world and picking up the feed store without talking to anyone, and, you know, not making eye contact unless needed, and how is this going to work? You know, is he going to walk into the tractor store with his hands in shashu? Is he going to gasho to I mean, wow, this is going to be something, you know. So with heart in hand and my eyes a little bit wider open than usual, we got in the truck, and there was no chit chat or anything. It was just as if we were sitting in the Zendo, you know. It was you know, we sit in the truck, we go out and drive, and I'm playing it cool, you know, but secretly I'm like, what's going to happen? And we got there, and he got out of the truck, and then he just walked into the feed store, and hey, I'm Horace. He used his street name, which was interesting to me. And I'm here to pick up the grain stuff somebody called and said I was going to be here. Oh yeah, it's right out back. All right. And he waves to me to come on over, and I'm like, okay. And so it was just incredibly ordinary, and then somehow I was disappointed. I was expecting some flourish of Zen somewhere or something. Of course, I didn't have the eyes to see that it was happening all around me at the time. So anyway, we drove back and unloaded the feed, and the session went on. And the event basically faded from my memory for decades. But then here we were. I had my own little work crew. So I thought, okay, I know how it's supposed to be. I'm just going to be, just nice, straight, here we go, down the middle of the line. No, that isn't how it worked. We had fun. We were a team on a reconnaissance mission, entering unseen. And we laughed, and we got back to seriousness, and then we laughed some more. And we got the job done. But we had fun doing it. At least I did. There was definitely a moment not to be missed. I thought we had this cart, to schlep the things, and then Fuzen, was there, and also, and then I thought, oh, this is perfect. That image of George Washington on the little boat with the flag, I thought, perfect. Wait, everybody stops. Oh, I get on there. Go. So we're riding down the sidewalk, it was great. We're just laughing the whole way. Such is serious Zen training. But it is. I've got to say, I remember a more serious moment when I was in what I thought at the time anyway was deep calamity and crisis. After all, I had graduated. What was going to happen? And I graduated with a degree in jazz guitar, mind you. So, oh God, what happens now? And I was in such serious calamity, and it was a complete upending of the world I had known. I had never known anything other than the academic environment to that moment. And I remember I came into retreat with a weighty heart and heavy feet and a very foggy mind. And Roshi was relentlessly mirthful about it. He just wouldn't buy my seriousness. He just wouldn't buy it. I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is serious. He's like, yes. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, you'll figure it out. No, ring. I'm like, what? And this ability to realize the freedom in the middle of it. That's what I'm saying. To play freely. Maizumi Roshi's final Dharma words were play freely in a samadhi of self-fulfilling and other-fulfilling samadhi. Self-fulfilling and other-fulfilling samadhi. Play freely. What is this playing freely? Sometimes it is real grief and real tears. Please don't mishear me. But even inside that, what is this playing freely? I opened this retreat with a few lines from the Dhammapada. Live in joy. Live in peace. Even in the midst of a troubled world. Live in joy. Live in peace, even in the midst of a very troubled world. And this is not just wishful thinking. It's, if you will, it is to be uncoded. It is to be perceived. It is to be lived, to experience. The true joy of the awakened one has nothing to do with the circumstances. It is not dependent on things lining up your way. Sometimes they will. It feels great. I mean, I definitely prefer it, but a lot of times it won't. And if your joy depends on all the ducks rowing up, well, It's not very reliable, is it? There's no refuge to be had in the ducks. They don't, if they line up, it's an accident. You can't, you can try. People do. People will live and die trying to make the ducks line up. But that's not the Dharma. There's sort of a practical business here. Dude, they're ducks. It's your life. First step is to realize the ducks are ducks. Let them be ducks. Yeah, quack. Because actual joy is possible inside that quack. Wishing it wasn't a quack and trying to make it be something else is a prescription for suffering. Yeah? You wanted a swan, you got a duck. Live in joy, in peace. There is a peace inside the moment, in the very heart of the moment. And again, it doesn't depend on the content of the moment. It can be a terrifying, scary, oh my God, I can't imagine this next step moment, or it can be an easy, breezy, simple. That's not why the peace is there. And it's in a world that is acknowledged to be filled with trouble. It is trouble, and it's not fine. It's not. There is much bodhisattvic work to do in your world that you are the only one capable of doing. Manjushri cannot do it unless you do it. Kanon cannot show up unless you do. The wonderful teachers have no authority there. That's your life. And they won't, if they're doing their job, tell you what you're supposed to do to be a good Zen person. So what are you going to do? Or more importantly, how are you going to be? This is more to the heart of things. Doan Sensei brought forward this quote by Master Keizan, who himself is a very, very interesting character and quite related to this temple. You may or may not be aware, he was, some say, a fourth generation successor to Dogen. But more than that, he's generally within Soto Zen circles regarded as the great founder. Not just Dogen. They look at perhaps Dogen as being the very stern father figure, but Keizan is the mother-like, compassionate one. It said that his grandmother, her name was Miyochi, let her name be known, was a great supporter of Master Dogen when he came back from China. And he needed supporters because there were people trying to like kill him and, oust him. He was a big threat, bringing this awakening thing from China. It was very threatening of the existing order. So among some other supporters, Miyochi was there. And she had a very, very strong devotion to Kanon, as did her daughter, Keizan's mother. Her name was Akon. And Akon herself would go on to found a few temples, interestingly enough, a Hoji-ji, and I can't read my writing, Jodo-ji. So clearly there's something in the family. There's something going on there. But in particular, Master Keizan, he really focused on empowerment and training of women. In fact, the first Dharma transmission of Soto Zen to a female practitioner was through him. Akun was her name. AQ was her name. First Dharma transmission to a Soto Zen nun. And he founded 5 places of training for women. And lifelong had a devotion to Kanon. All kind of radical stuff for the day, and not to be just assumed. I'm sure, as Sensei pointed out, he's also known as the founder of Sojiji, which is the lineage we descend from through Jiyu Kennet, through her transmission. And as she pointed out, possibly the only way you can tell Eheji and Sojiji is if you have the knots available, you can see them. So we're the knotty ones. And then another thing that's important in our lineage, also in the koan side, is he actually is the translator of the Denko Roku. He created the Denko Roku, which is called the transmission of the lamp or the transmission of the light. And it's a collection of transmission stories from Shakyamuni and his successor, Mahakayasapa, all the way through Dogen and Dogen's first successor. Interestingly, he did not include his own awakening story in the collection. So I think they added it later, because why not? And that's a case, it's a collection of cases that we work through in our koan curriculum too. If I remember right in the moment, it's it's the last one before we get to Tozan's ranks. So it's pretty up there. They're very interesting, right? Early 14th century. I mean, America simply wasn't a thought yet. He says, arising from stillness, carry out activities without hesitation. Back to the question of where is this joy? Where is the peace that's available inside the troubled world? Keizan speaks to us, he sings rather, arising from stillness. Please know that that's not just kind of a random poetic flourish. It's the truth. Rising from emptiness. You rise from emptiness and carry out activities with no hesitation, with no hindrance in the mind. If you look carefully at the white Tara Tonka behind me, she's not, there's nothing on that imagery that's random. All of it is Dharma teaching. It's encoded in the visual. If you know how to decode it, it's right there. Even if you don't know how to decode it, it's right there. What is her base? Where is she rising from? More importantly, where is your base? What do you rise from? Rising from stillness, emerging from emptiness. Carry out activities without any hesitation. This moment is the koan. And I don't care if you're someone who thinks you're allergic to koans, or if you love them and can't wait for them, or if you're in it and hate it, or in it and love it, or are just scared by the whole idea. It doesn't matter. Because actually the real truth is this moment is the koan. That's the fact of it. Genjo koan, the koan of everyday life. This is the deal. When practice and realization are without complexity. And that's, again, what I was referring to from Rev Anderson Roshi's teachings. The stillness of the Buddha's sitting is not mere stillness. It is complete presence and stillness. There is not the slightest meddling. It is physical and mental non-interfering. Now, this can seem quite octagonal or obtuse or impossible. How can you meet the moment without interfering? That is a very good question. Very good question. What does it mean to rise from emptiness and meet the moment beautifully, without interfering, without meddling, without supposing that there's something you need to fix or hack off or add or adjust or cajole or haggle with or plead with or on behalf of. Simply talk about nonviolence. True nonviolence in the deepest sense. True non-meddling. True non-clinging. All the literature we have says very strongly that the Buddha liked that non-clinging phrase. I've been smacked upside the head with it several times myself. Non-clinging. And yet, complete engaging. This is not the non-meddling and non-clinging of the person who says, well, society is screwed, too bad, I'm out of here. It just leaves. You might think that wouldn't it be better if you could just build a hermitage out in the woods and never be seen from again, living in peace amongst the snows and the squirrels and the deers. And the fantasy is lovely, but it is not acceptable. Not really. And by the way, it take a lot of work to do that. No, the model of Kazon and all the ancestors somehow always turn us back into the world in this joyful playing freely, this peace. But wait, how could there be peace after all? In that particular time, there was political turmoil. There was war. There was famine. There was plague. Maybe we should just wait until those things all get solved and then we can practice. There's no end to that stuff. At least not yet. You can't wait for your life to settle down before you decide to dig in. It doesn't work that way. Not for long. Maybe in spots. For a minute, under the right lighting, from the right angle. It can be like that for a hot minute, but no more. When practice and realization are without complexity, then the koan is this present moment. When does that bell ring anyway? Why is it that with this one striker and this one bell, I can miss it? Or one time I hit it and the thing screams, and the next thing I hit it and it goes, what? Play? I had one job to do. Is it not amazing how complex it can become all at once, right? But to embrace that moment of striker and bell, fresh and new every time, whether it decides to ring or not, whether you're anywhere close to when you're supposed to be or not, there's the joy. There's the peace. There's the rising from emptiness into a world that desperately needs a bell ring, even though you won't do it because you don't believe it's time. That which is before any trace arises. What is it that's traceless? It is thorough intimacy with whatever is happening that leaves no trace. You ever notice that sometimes when the bell happens in just the right time and just the right way, and right's being in quotes, it's as though there's no bell ringing at all. It's the most natural expression of ordinariness that you could imagine, and somehow it's so miraculous that it can crack your heart wide open. I think in a lot of ways we gather the way we do, kind of like a play or something. We put on our costumes, we follow our stage directions, but there's no audience here. It is simply a way for us to interact with each other and to help each other recognize who we are and to taste for ourselves the true Dharma. And frankly, to be able to believe it's real, to be able to trust it, to know it really. And it will find your weak point. Relentlessly, like water falling to the right little spot, it will find whatever it is that needs a little attention or a lot. And so trust that process. Do not meddle with your session, please. Do not cling to your session, please. Do not even think of it as your session, please. Simply meet the moment exactly as it shows itself. Learn to do that. Get really good at doing that. Become a virtuoso of this moment in its most humble and elated states. Sitting on that seat of emptiness, rising as the Buddha of you. You open your eyes and your ears, and what do you see and hear? Who's seeing and hearing anyway? And what is required? What does it mean to meet this moment exquisitely, beautifully, with nobility and dignity and authenticity? It turns out you don't need to make yourself into someone else to do that. You don't need to fix your list of problems or amplify all the nice qualities you think you have and hide the other ones or anything like that. Kuan Yin simply hears the cries of the world and responds. It's the most natural thing. This is an infinitely flexible stillness that can adjust to the impermanent nature of all things, harmonizing with all situations. The great virtue of Sangha is harmony. Let harmony pervade everywhere. Realizing harmony practicing harmony. It doesn't mean just getting along. Getting along is fine. It's better than not getting along, I suppose, but that's not the topic sentence. Harmony is the sentence. Harmony is the practice. You know, we make very clear rules about how kinhin goes so that we can make harmony with each other while we practice. It's not chaos kinhin. Might be fun sometime. Sometimes it is. But we make harmony together. We practice in this way. And granted, this is a very structured way of engaging. But I tell you that when you practice it here and realize it here and find joy and freedom in it here, it starts showing up everywhere by itself. Not because you're arm wrestling it into the moment. It doesn't work like that. Can't work like that. But if you relentlessly apply yourself to harmonizing with the moment as it arises here at Sesshin in retreat, which could just as well be called advance. You're at advance. Then you're doing it. You can trust that. I've had the occasion to say to many people, and Sensei and I were talking about this, that it's not how many years you've been practicing. That is a metric, but it's not the most telling one. For my teacher, Myoen Roshi, right? For my teacher, the number, if there's any number that matters to the old man, and not many do, frankly, but if there's one that does, how many days of Sesshin? That's a real counter now. That actually says something to me. Very different than how long have you been practicing Buddhism, whatever that means. How long have you been practicing Zen? Oh, well, you know. You get some sense, but I liken it to guitar. How long have you played guitar? Oh, I've played guitar for 10 years. Oh? I think a better question, how many hours have you played? Oh, 10. On my birthday, I play Happy Birthday like for about an hour, and that's it. Okay, that's more telling. You understand? How many hours have you played guitar? Studied it? Something like this. So this business of engaging in this most demanding and rigorous of practices, this schedule of Sesshin, this is the business of awakening that joy and awakening that peace and recognizing the world is troubled and our hearts are in fact broken open, wide open. But that is no problem. That is not a problem. That's the miraculous arising. Harmonizing with all situations, Zazen does not prefer success over failure. Zazen does not prefer success over failure, or enlightenment over delusion. I kind of like delusion myself. It's fun. What is this non-preferring, this non-meddling, this non-clinging? Dukkha itself is a word that is said to relate in its etymology to a wheel that is stuck and will not turn. This is the mind enmeshed in its own foolishness, trying to cling and affix everything, to control everything. You know the mind I'm speaking of, that would control everything and everyone at all times, and most of all yourself, and near second, all of them, and stuck. Zazen has no such wish to control, has no preference, simply allows moment after moment after moment, nen, to rise and to meet that moment beautifully, nobly, O noble one, and to not cling to it. So if you have great awakening, awesome. Do not cling. You're enmeshed in delusion, awesome. Do not cling. Fear not, it will change. Simply allow the wheel to turn. If we are enlightened, we sit in the middle of enlightenment with no preference for it. If we are deluded, we sit in the middle of delusion with no aversion towards it. If you happen to be able to sit zazen with a body that is perfectly at ease physically, enjoy that while you can. For me, please, because I can no longer. But do not attach to it. And if, like myself, you find yourself sitting in a body that has some objections to the whole project, so be it. But with no aversion to that, harmonize that body and this moment and this practice. This is the Buddha's practice. The activity of all Buddhas and awakened ancestors is just this one thing. Oh, but I don't want to, no! Life will come along and goose you or paddle you. It'll happen. That's not the question. Zen practice is not some esoteric way to avoid that. It's being free inside it. Finding a way to harmonize with the moments. I'll conclude with a few more comments. There was an abbot of Sojiji. His name was Keido Chisan, and he was an abbot of Sojiji in the 60s. And when asked about Master Keizan, he gave this very kind of telling quartet of observations. He says that Master Keizan regarded all people with warm affection. All people. Indigent, royalty, doesn't matter. Regarding all people with warm affection, and was a friend of the common people. Like all societies, at this time in that place too, there were subgroups: the in, the out, the powerful, the powerless, the wealthy, the poor. Nothing new. But for Master Keizan, he was a friend to all people. This is an interesting one. He would enter into the realm of the ideal together with people. Entering into the realm of the ideal, bringing folk along. I think my teacher did this very well. What does it mean to create a Buddha field for your life? as your life, of your life, and with all the people around, allow them to enter. Whether they know it or not, this is not the point. Your Buddha field is not some little isolation tank for you to recharge your battery. This is a mistaken and very troublesome perspective. It won't be nearly good enough. It is not the Buddha's practice. The Buddha did not teach, take a little break. I mean, I take little breaks. I'm not saying I don't. But this business of entering into the realm of the ideal together with everyone, that's some magic right there. And sharing one's joy with others. What better description for that 10th oxherding picture? Sharing one's joy. I think in a very real way, the whole business of Zen training can be summed up in these kinds of words. But ultimately, we all know the words will fail. The talk will end, and again, you'll be left with naught but yourself and the timekeeper's will. And what to do with this life, this body, this mind, this heart. How to realize it. How to realize this joy and this peace in the midst of a troubled world. No one can do it for you. And you cannot do it alone. So right here and right now is the perfect time, place, situation, causes and condition and degree. The ducks are in fact lined up. Use the moment well. Do not hold back. Throw yourself into this moment completely and trust it and trust yourself. In this way, Kanon is able to hear the cries of the world even here and respond, well, in the way that only you can. May it be so.
Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable.